Strategy is something that gets talked about a lot. In fact, I don't know, there's probably hundreds of thousands of books written about strategy. I talk to business owners regularly about strategy, and yet nobody does it very well. I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it's just the way we think, or maybe the way we don't think. But to me, strategy is a lot more for businesses, particularly family businesses, than a 3-ring binder. It is a mindset. It is a way of living inside of a family business. It is a way that you can create a business that will live forever, in my opinion, for generations after generations, if you have a strategy. So my name's Rob Ferguson with Ferguson Alliance, and that's what we're going to talk about today is strategy making for the family business, getting that alignment to hit your future goals. In order to set this up, this is, I believe this is our 7th series of webinars that we've been doing and explaining the prosperity process that we use here at Ferguson Alliance. It's a metaphor of a building, or maybe we think of a treasury. And this building is designed to hold your family's prosperity. Now, the way you define prosperity is up to each and individual family. We believe it's something a lot more than just money. But regardless of how you define prosperity, there are certain specific ways that we believe can grow your legacy and grow your value at the same time. And we build our model on top of one foundation where we integrate the family values into the business culture. You see, we've studied businesses that are 100 years or older, and one of the key characteristics of those businesses is their culture, that they have figured out a way to integrate those family values into their business culture, which really gives these family businesses a competitive advantage. Now, on top of that foundation, you see 3 pillars. We see this as common in businesses that have survived for 100 years or more. And these 3 pillars are shared vision, strong organization, and they have a system for managing. Each pillar has 3 sets of elements, or drivers is what we call them, summing up to the 9 drivers of prosperity. So that's our model to help these family businesses get there. And today we're going to talk about the strategy driver. And I'm going to do my best to answer 3 questions. What is strategy? Why is strategy needed in a family business? And how is strategy made? So hang in there. I hope you enjoy this. So let me talk a little bit about system for managing. It's interesting when I say that, system for managing, to some of our clients, they think I'm talking about maybe a computer system, or they're thinking that there's some sort of Gantt chart that we're going to bring into the business. But it's not that at all. It really is. It's just the methodology of how we're going to go about managing our daily activities, our weekly and monthly activities, to reach our business goals and objectives. And part of the elements of a system for managing is strategy, but it's also planning and governance. And so that's why we call it our system for managing pillar. Essentially, system for managing is a disciplined process, a series of meetings that you see here on the screen today that we'll talk about later, but not in this webinar, but at another webinar. But this is really how businesses can institutionalize their processes and continuously improve on those. So I think we need to define strategy. And for this webinar, I did some research, and I saw a lot of smart people define strategy. But there was something in the back of my mind that I remembered when I was a child watching Peter Pan at the movie theater. I was fascinated by it. And I remember John Darling, the character, talking about strategy. So I thought I'd share that with you. This is a scene when John Darling was talking to a lost boy where the lost boy says, engines, let's go get them. And of course, John, being the thoughtful person he is, says, hold on a minute. First, we must have a strategy. Well, what's that? What's a strategy? Well, it's a plan of attack. So to me, I think that's the most simplistic way to think about strategy. It's how are you going to attack the market? Because strategy is all about how are you going to compete? How are you going to grow value? How are you going to add value? Now, every business has to go through that. But the uniqueness of a family business is it brings on another level of complexity. Because you have in a family business, you've got parallel strategies that you're going through. You have your family core values, your family commitments, your family vision, and your enterprise plan for continuity inside your family. But then along the same line, every other business has their management philosophy, their strategic commitments, and their vision and their strategic plans. So how does a family get those two aligned? And that's why strategy, I think, is more important than ever for family businesses, yet family businesses ignore strategy. And they don't want to talk about the family core values or the family commitments, but they have to. And they have to be discussed and talked about in this parallel process that I'm putting up here on my graphic today, because that's how you're going to get there. So, and Alice in Wonderland, the Cheshire Cat, said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Well, that's exactly why you need a strategy. I was at a conference last week with about 20 small to mid-sized business owners. And a couple of them on the breaks told me that they don't have a strategy. They don't set goals, and they've been in business for 30 years. They're very proud of that fact, and didn't see the value in strategy, which was fair enough. So I met with one of the gentlemen for breakfast, and I asked him, I said, who's your primary salesperson? Oh, well, that's me. How many hours a week do you work? Oh, easily 50 to 60. Who's the highest paid employee in your organization? Oh, it's John over here. He's my top sales guy. Well, I thought you were the top sales guy. Well, he really is, but he helps me, but I give him commission to do that. So the more we talked, I realized that there's a reason why he doesn't have a strategy. He's just maintaining status quo. And then my last and final question was, how much has the value of your business grown in the last 10 years? He said, I have no clue. I don't even know how to measure it. Well, if you don't know how to measure your value of your business or the value you're contributing to society, either way, then how do you know where you're going? Any road's going to take you there. So these are some of the benefits that I believe are there for family businesses that you should be thinking about if you don't have a well thought out strategy, and if you're not teaching your organization how to be strategic thinkers, because that's the only way I know how to have actionable plans to reach your company goals, how you can actually monitor and track your success. It allows you to make wiser, better decisions, hopefully more proactive. You can outthink your competition. It gives everybody in the organization certainly a common direction. It unifies your employees and increases employee engagement. And lastly, you may not like to hear this or not, but when you go to value a business, which we do, that if a business doesn't have a strategy like this gentleman that I was talking with, the value of that business is going to get discounted greatly. So having a strategy and being able to execute on that strategy will increase the overall value or net worth to you as a business owner or shareholders. But it's tough in family businesses. There's a dilemma. You're constantly balancing what does a family want and need against what the business requirements and opportunities are. It's a give and take seesaw, so to speak. Well, there are these 5 pivotal variables: control, career, capital, conflict, and culture. These are the 5 pivotal areas that we are always being asked to provide guidance and assistance with. But this is where strategy comes in. Part of having a strategy is to deal with these 5 variables. But now it's not the only part. So let's talk about that a little bit more. There's choices that you make in strategy. And I believe there's really just 2. I'm trying to keep it really simple and straightforward. Where are you going to compete and how are you going to compete? That's it. The strategy is about winning. Strategy is mapping out the battlefield. The marketplace is your battlefield. So I reference back to a podcast that I'm a big fan of. It's called Business Wars. And it's, I think it's by Wanderley. So if you like to listen to podcasts, I suggest you go there and you'll quickly get some examples of how strategy is built, how strategy fails, how strategy is ever evolving. But what they do is they pit two well-known companies together, like Adidas and Nike, or Blockbuster and Netflix. Quite interesting. But the strategy is always, how are we going to compete and where are we going to compete? Those are the questions. Those are the strategic questions you need to be thinking about. And as you do, you're going to end up, in my little diagram here, is you're going to be thinking about, how am I going to increase the overall value of my business? That's why you're competing. You're competing to get more customers, sell more product. That's it. And make more money. And you want to make more money, not only for the shareholders, but we believe you have a social responsibility in business. And again, if you're not profitable, you're not going to be able to fulfill those social obligations. So you're going to be creating a competitive strategy and a business or corporate strategy all at the same time. Now, where it gets a little, so that's really simple. And I think it's easy to understand where to compete and how to compete. But now you have to think about not just competing today, but how do we compete tomorrow? So I've put this dichotomy up here to show you the 2 dimensions of strategy. So if you're competing for the present, at the same time, you have to prepare for the future. So where are you competing? That's the scope of your product, what geographies you're going to get in, what channels or what new customers you're going to have. And then how are you going to compete, which is you only have 2 choices on how you're going to compete. That's it, just 2. Are you going to be a differentiated product? Or are you going to have a cost advantage? Whether it's a product or a service. Those are the only 2 that I know that help you get an advantage. So as you're working on that, and as you're deploying tactics around that, at the same time, you have to be thinking about the future. What am I going to be when I grow up? What is my business going to look like 10 years from now? What's the overall purpose that I'm trying to fulfill here? And what's the mission of how I'm going to do that? What are the specific strategic intents that I have, and the goals and objectives for the future? So you have these 2 dueling strategies that you have to constantly be battling. And that's why I don't think managers should get overly concerned, or leaders should get overly concerned of having the perfect strategy, because it is dynamic. It shifts and changes. That's why the idea of writing a strategic manual doesn't work. That's why we believe with our clients, we write a 1-page strategic plan. That's it. Because the things are going to change. The market will change. Technology is going to change. Social behaviors will change. And you have to be nimble and agile to be able to change with that. Okay. So how's strategy made? There's 3 types of strategies. The first one is intended strategy, or strategic intents. This is where the leadership of the business, in a centralized manner, thinks up big brainy ideas. We're going to expand into the Western region. We are going to get out of pharmacy and drug, and we're going to move into grocery. Those are big strategic intents, and those come from the top down. But then you have the realized strategy, the strategy that actually is getting implemented. Now, interesting, our research says that only 10 to 30% of intended strategy is ever realized. So why go through the effort and the exercise of intended strategy? Well, because the strategic intent is the guardrails on the road to where you're headed. It unifies everybody and starts marching the troops in a specific direction. But as managers and employees are trying to deploy the various tactics and make decisions around that strategy, life happens. And so again, sometimes we're not that smart in the boardroom. We get smarter every day, particularly as we're implementing these strategies. And so as we're implementing these strategies, we're making some shifts, and then we end up having emergent strategies coming. And those emergent strategies eventually become strategic intents. So you see how it works. It's fluid. It's not, there's no set formula. And from a standpoint of when I set my strategy, I don't have to look at it again for another 5 years. Quite honestly, I think management should be thinking strategically every day. Every day that they are working, the decision should be, how is this going to affect my long-term strategy if I decide not to produce this item? So those are the 3 types of strategy. So the way you make that is, these are the 4 steps that we have. As I was saying, leadership sets the strategic agenda, but then that agenda has to be analyzed as you're deploying your resources in the current situation. And you have to have the ability to reformulate your strategies as you're executing, and your implementation is constantly being improved and recycled. So now back to the difference between a non-family business and a family business. In a family business, the shareholders have 3 priorities that they're constantly trying to manage. Growth. Do I grow the business? Control. Do I give up shares or ownership of my business to grow the business? Or liquidity? How can I take money out of the business? How do I monetize? Now, most business owners will sacrifice one of these priorities for the other 2. So let's look at how this works. So we can have business owner A, who makes a strategic choice that they are going to invest for growth and continue to keep control. So that would tell us that the corporate strategy is not to bring in any outside investors. Even if the growth potential is that big, they don't want to give up control to hit their growth targets. But they are also saying that they're willing to not take out distributions to increase their liquidity. So they're willing to put that back into the business for growth and to maintain control. So let's look at the other business owner B. This business owner, he's decided to put liquidity and control as priority at the sake of growth. So this business owner is saying, I'm going to keep control of my business. I'm going to maximize the distributions to me, knowing that I am going to probably dampen growth. I'm not willing to make significant investments back into my business because I want to maintain liquidity and control. And then we have the business owner C here, whose priority is growth and liquidity, and is open to giving up control to meet that. And I know business owners in all 3 of these, and we have clients of all 3, and they're all 3 successful. It's just a matter of making a choice. You see, when you don't make a choice, that's when you get into indecision and have some issues. Again, I ask quite often, what's the difference between value or enterprise value and profit? Well, in the most simplest terms, I'll try to say that profit measures what happened in the past, and value measures what your current business profits are and what your future profits are. I hope that makes sense. I mean, we all know what profit is, right? It's revenue less your expenses. But value is taking that current year profit and forecasting it forward on what kind of return am I going to get on this asset for the future. Now, I bring this up because we believe that businesses should be driving towards creating value, and we determine that as value for stakeholders, and the stakeholders are not just shareholders. It's all of the contingencies, all the people and companies that rely on your company, that family business. So stakeholders would be employees, would be suppliers, would be customers, would be your community. So it's how the company grows a value for its stakeholders and how the company delivers on its value proposition in the marketplace. So those are that's really what we're looking at when we're trying to define value. Now, a lot of times business owners think about value as those tangible assets they have. Cash is understandable. It's easy to get. How much is in my bank account? We also get, all of those assets that we see on our financial statements. So those are the tangible assets. But what are the non-tangible assets? Well, we have our 4 C's. We have our human capital. It's what is your relationship with your people? What's the talent recruiting process you have? What's your retention levels with your talent? What about your social capital, the strength of your brand and your company's culture? And then the customer capital is how strong are your relationships with your clients? Are you heavily concentrated with 1 or 2 customers, or do you have great diversity? And then your business systems and infrastructure is your structural capital. See, those 4 C's, those non-tangible assets, they drive a tremendous amount of value in your business because that's showing future value. So let's take a look at a company that, let's say, is in its industry has a 4 or 5 multiple of what these companies are trading for in the marketplace. Let me back up a minute. So the way the general rule of thumb for measuring value, enterprise value of a company is profits times some multiple. Now, the market sets the multiple. All right. So it depends on what kind of market you're in, but the way businesses are traded, and I'm speaking non-public company, but the market will set that multiple, and then the company sets the profit, and typically that profit is measured as earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So sometimes you hear that called EBITDA. So EBITDA times a multiple. So what I'm illustrating here is that if you have a company that's industry is trading at, say, a 4 or a 5 multiple, that your balance sheet and your net income statement, your EBITDA, your profits, they are only going to get 1 to 2 times valued. It's the non-tangible assets, the human capital, social, customer, and structural capital, they're going to get 3 times or more. So that's why we work so hard with our owners in these family businesses to work on these intangible assets, because the money will come if you can get these in place. So we use these 5 tools. We have several others, but these are our 5 dominant tools that we use for analyzing current company situation and future opportunities for businesses. And I'm sure some of these you recognize. The first one in the left-hand corner is your typical SWOT. analysis. We do something a little bit differently. We'll do a company SWOT like this, but we will also do a competitive SWOT, where we will do a SWOT for each of our companies, our clients, competitors. And then we will also do individual, personal, or executive SWOTs on individuals. And those are always enlightening and open up some opportunities. So that SWOT analysis is really important. The one in the middle is Michael Porter's 5 Forces. This is a tool that we like to use to help see, well, where is the pressure? Where's the real power coming from in the marketplace when we're competing? Do we really have a lot of influence and power over the market or not? And then the far right one really is it's a marketing tool, Ansoff Matrix. It helps us determine where we have some expansion opportunities with our products and our markets. The bottom left-hand tool has commonly been known as the PEST, P-E-S-T, but lately we've been adding L&E and call it PESTLE. And so this is just another way for us to work with our clients on helping determine the influences and changes coming from the political, economical, social, technical, legal, and environmental areas. And then lastly is our balanced scorecard and strategic mapping. So just to say, those are some samplings of tools that I think are really important to use when you're doing your strategic planning. And then there's a lot of what I'll call frameworks for strategy. McKinsey's framework is very well known. Even BCG's got one. So there's a lot of framework out there. This is ours. And I like ours because I believe it's pretty easy to understand. We've put this strategic framework in the shape of a triangle, where the tip of the triangle is the most aspirational element that we have in our strategy. And that would be our values. And it also has the longest time for achievement, 10 plus years. So you're always working on your values, your operating ethos and your purpose and your vision. Those shouldn't be changing, but maybe every 10 years or so. And then as you move down the triangle, you can see the mission, strategic intents, and goals. Well, those have a 3, maybe 5-year horizon for those. Those do get updated. And as I was talking about, those strategic intents, quite honestly, may get updated in between the 3 to 5 years as you're going through and doing implementation. And then at the bottom of the triangle, those are kind of our focus areas with a 1-year perspective. May happen to be the most objective. This is where your budgets come in. KRAs are key result areas. These are your significant projects that you're working on in a company that have a 1-year time frame. So I think I've done a pretty good job, or at least I've done the best job I can do to convince those that are listening that if you don't have a strategy, you need to get one. But let me give you some statistics to see if I can compel you a little bit more to really think strategically about your business. There's this joke that has gone around about, the dead horse strategy. And if you find an individual riding a dead horse, they don't want to change. They don't want to dismount that dead horse, which quite honestly should be the best strategy. Instead, they hire consultants to help them get that dead horse to move a little bit faster. Or they will hire employees to move the dead horse into a different direction. Well, we know the horse is dead, so it's not gonna make a difference, that you should dismount that dead horse. Well, in 2022, we did some research and we found out that about 5 million companies here in the US filed for Chapter 11 reorganization. So they had reached insolvency. And also in 2022, we had 5 million new businesses come in. So we have this churn that's happening.
And in order to actually build your house of prosperity and reach the zone of prosperity, there's no other way except you have to have a strategy that sets the guardrails, establishes the path to your objectives and your definition of prosperity. Because if you don't, you'll get caught into this churn and you'll be out of business, and then you'll be starting a new business. So speaking of failed businesses, these are 3 examples that are commonly known where Blockbuster, they failed to realize the strength and power of non-brick and mortar businesses, and Netflix started mailing DVDs and then quickly moved into streaming movies. Blockbuster got overran. They became, maybe in my mind, a little bit arrogant about their success and their place in the market. They were not willing to change their strategic intents as they were implementing the strategies. Kodak, we know this one all too well. The inventors of digital photography, they tried to put a plan together on digital photography, but that's not where their investments went. And so they became non-relevant within a year in the early 2000s. And then Nokia, this is an interesting company. They had probably the best phone available, highest quality voice, but they did not believe the Apple products of having a data on the phone was something that consumers wanted. They thought it was all about voice as opposed to data. And so they failed. So that's why I think that you go back to my 3 strategies. You have the strategic intents that do come from the top down, but then you have to have the realized strategies as you're working and deploying your strategies out. You have to get smarter every day and the leadership team has to be flexible to adjust. And then you have the emergent strategies that come from changing of technology. So let me just conclude. Michael Porter, a well-known American management consultant, said the essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. And I think that's really true. And I tried to sum up what I believe are the 5 benefits of strategy for a family business. And it sets the direction and it gets alignment in your organization. It helps you make wiser decisions. It's certainly going to create innovation because that's the way you're going to compete. You're either going to have to innovate to be the lower cost advantage, or you're going to have to innovate to be the differentiator. And without a strategy, how do you measure success? So it provides that. And at the end of the day, it increases your level of satisfaction, not only for you as the family business owner or leader, but all your employees and all those in your stakeholder group, and it increases engagement. Well, I thank you very much for listening today. And if you have any questions, you can follow up with us. You can go to our website at ferguson-alliance.com, and there's our contact information, emails, and we'd be happy to talk to you about helping you think about strategy in your business.